The Catharan warship's detention bay smelled like burnt copper and ozone. I'd been standing at attention for 3 hours, wrists bound in energy cuffs that hummed against my bones, while the alien guards watched me with their 4 black eyes. The metal floor vibrated beneath my boots. Something was coming. The door hissed open and she walked in. I'd seen Cartharans before. Every human soldier had, usually through a rifle scope before the shooting started, but I'd never seen one like her. She stood 8 feet tall, armored in plates that seemed to grow from her exoskeleton rather than sit on top of it. The metal was darker than space itself, but it caught the light in ways that made my eyes hurt if I stared too long. Geometric patterns ran along the edges, glowing faint purple like dying stars. I was staring. I knew I was staring, couldn't help it. The craftsmanship was impossible. Our intelligence reports said Kataran armor was mass-produced, stamped out in orbital foundries for their warrior caste. This wasn't that. Every plate fit perfectly, flowing into the next like water frozen mid-cascade. The shoulder guards curved up and back, forming points that could have been decorative or lethal. Probably both. The breastplate had an intricate relief carved into it, something that might have been their written language or pure art. My tactical brain cataloged weak points out of habit. Gaps at the joints, thinner plating where mobility mattered, but mostly I just stared because I'd never seen armor that beautiful. It made our combat rigs look like scrap metal held together with duct tape and prayers. She stopped 5 feet away. Her head tilted, mandibles clicking softly. Then she smirked. I didn't know Katarans could smirk. Their faces were all hard chitin and compound eyes. But somehow she managed it, something in the way her mandibles shifted and her eyes narrowed. You like what you see? Her voice came out synthesized through a translator disc at her throat, but I caught the amusement underneath. Every survival instinct I had screamed at me to look away, to stare at the floor like a good prisoner. Instead, I met her gaze. Your armor. It's remarkable. The guards shifted, reaching for their weapons. She raised one clawed hand and they froze. Remarkable. She tested the word, rolling it around like she was tasting something new. You're the human they captured during the Proxima raid. The one who held Outpost 7 for 16 days? 15 days, ma'am. The 16th doesn't count if you lose. Another click, almost like laughter. She moved closer and I smelled something sharp and clean, like ionized air after lightning. My guards wanted to execute you immediately. Do you know why I refused? Because I'm worth more alive for intelligence purposes? Because you welded blast doors shut using nothing but a plasma cutter and kept 400 civilians alive while my fleet reduced everything around you to dust. She circled me slowly, her claws clicking on the metal floor. Determination, perhaps even honor. I tracked her movement from the corner of my eye, keeping my head still. We have different definitions of honor. Do we? She completed her circle, facing me again. You protected the weak, fought against impossible odds. Refused to surrender even when surrender would have been logical. These are things we value. Killed my people. And you killed mine. No anger in her voice, just statement of fact. The war exists because it exists. Neither of us started it. Both of us continue it. But that's not why I came here. The floor vibrated harder. Whatever was coming was getting closer. She reached out, and I forced myself not to flinch. Her claw traced the air an inch from my shoulder, following the line where armor would sit if I'd been wearing any. You studied my armor, not looking for weakness. You were appreciating the craft. I used to work in a fabrication shop before the war. I didn't know why I was telling her this. My father made custom pieces for mining rigs, taught me to spot quality work, and that's the finest armor I've ever seen. The integration alone should be impossible. The alloy looks like it's bonded at the molecular level. Her mandibles spread wider. Definitely a smile. It is. This armor has been in my bloodline for 600 years. Each queen adds to it, improves it, makes it stronger. When I die, my daughter will inherit it and add her own mark. A smaller Cartharan entered, moving with nervous energy. She wore simpler armor, burnished copper instead of that impossible black. She couldn't have been more than 4 feet tall. The queen's whole posture changed. Still regal, still commanding, but softer somehow. Come, daughter. The young one approached, her eyes fixed on me with naked curiosity. She moved around me in a mirror of her mother's earlier circle, studying me like I was a specimen in a lab. Is this the human who made the maze? Her voice was higher, unfiltered by translation tech. She spoke standard well enough for me to understand. The maze? I asked. The queen's eyes never left her daughter. Outpost 7. You sealed corridors, rerouted power, created false heat signatures. You turned a simple garrison into a labyrinth that took my forces 2 weeks to fully clear. 3 of my commanders called it impossible. They wanted to simply destroy the structure from orbit.
But you didn't.
No. I wanted to see what kind of mind could create such a defense with so few resources. She gestured at her daughter. Show him. The young Katharan reached into a pouch at her side and pulled out a data pad. The screen showed schematics. My schematics. The defensive layout of Outpost 7, every modification I'd made, mapped out in precise detail. I study it, the daughter said. Mother says understanding how enemies think makes better warriors. You're teaching her to think like humans. I'm teaching her to think like winners. You lost the battle, but you won something else. Respect. Legacy. Your defense will be studied for generations. She paused, head tilting. That's why I came here, human, to offer you a choice. The floor's vibration reached a peak and then stopped. Wherever the ship had been going, we'd arrived. What choice? Execution. Imprisonment. Or something else entirely. She stepped back, giving me space. You have knowledge my people value. Understanding of human engineering. Tactical creativity. The ability to innovate under pressure. These are rare gifts. You want me to betray my species? I want you to survive. The war will end eventually, one way or another. Wouldn't you rather see that end from a position of influence instead of a grave? So young. Probably younger than the children I'd kept alive in Outpost 7. On their side of the war, but still just a kid learning from her mother. The Queen saw where I was looking. Her mandibles clicked softly, almost a sigh. I know what you're thinking, human, that I would use you and discard you. That cooperation means damnation. She reached up and touched her breastplate, fingers tracing the carved patterns. But I am a queen. My word is absolute law. If I give you my protection, it will hold. Why would you? Because in 600 years, this armor has survived 17 wars. It endures because we adapt, because we learn from enemies who should have destroyed us, because we recognize value even in those we fight. She lowered her hand. You possess value. The question is whether you'll survive long enough to use it. The daughter moved closer to me, tilting her head up. The maze was beautiful. Inefficient in places, but beautiful. Humans think different than we do. Mother says different thinking makes us stronger. I looked at the armor again, really looked at it. 600 years of accumulated knowledge, generations of queens, adding their mark, making it better. They built for legacy while we built for survival. The queen's smirk returned. Still like what you see? Yes. The word came out before I could stop it. Yes, ma'am, I do. She nodded once. Decisive? Good. Then let's discuss terms. The energy cuffs released with a soft hiss. Blood rushed back into my hands, bringing pins and needles. I rubbed my wrists, feeling the guards tense behind me. One wrong move and I'd be dead before I hit the floor. But I didn't move. Just stood there, free but surrounded, while a queen who should have been my executioner waited for my answer. The daughter looked up at her mother with something like hope in her alien eyes. The queen looked at me with calculation and something else, something I recognized from my father's face when he'd shown me a particularly fine piece of work. Pride in craftsmanship, respect for skill. Tell me about the armor, I said. The molecular bonding. How do you prevent metallurgical stress at the integration points? The queen's mandibles spread in what could only be called a grin. That, human, is a very good question. The daughter bounced excitedly, pulling up technical schematics on her datapad. The queen settled into a combat stance that somehow looked casual, ready to discuss engineering with an enemy prisoner, like we were colleagues at a conference. And somewhere in the back of my mind I knew I'd just made a choice. Maybe the right one. Maybe the worst mistake of my life. But I'd survived Outpost 7 by being adaptable, by using every resource available, by seeing possibilities others missed. This was just another impossible situation. Just another maze to navigate. The bonding process takes 3 months, the queen began, and I leaned forward to listen. The laboratory was nothing like human engineering spaces. No clutter, no coffee cups, no tools scattered across workbenches. Everything existed in precise order, lit by bioluminescent panels that shifted color based on the work being done. Blue for practical application, red for danger. Right now, everything glowed purple. I stood before a holographic display showing the molecular structure of the queen's armor. The daughter, who'd finally told me her name was Shavara, manipulated the image with quick gestures. Beside me, the Queen watched with the patience of someone who'd explained this 1,000 times before. "The base layer is grown, not forged," she said, pointing to the innermost structure. "We cultivate metal-bonding bacteria in controlled environments. They consume specific minerals and excrete crystalline structures that interlock at the molecular level. It was elegant, organic in a way human metallurgy could never achieve. How do you control the growth pattern? The bacteria follow paths we establish, building along predetermined routes." Shivara zoomed in, showing individual bacterial colonies. "It takes 2 months just for the base layer, and if you make a mistake..." The Queen's tone suggested this was obvious. Flawed armor is worse than no armor. It creates false confidence. I thought about human armor production. Mass manufacturing, acceptable tolerance ranges, good enough for government work. We'd never achieve what I was seeing here. We didn't have time, didn't have the patience, didn't think in generations. "The intermediate layer bonds to the base through thermal cycling," the Queen continued. "We heat and cool in precise patterns over 4 weeks. Each cycle creates deeper integration. Stress fractures? The molecular bonding is stronger than either parent material. The armor becomes a single piece, not layers held together by hope and rivets." I almost laughed at that. She'd just described every piece of human armor I'd ever worn. "What about the outer layer? The decorative elements?" She loved this part. Artistic expression and functional enhancement. "The patterns aren't just decoration. They distribute kinetic energy, channel heat, even absorb certain radiation wavelengths." "Form and function, inseparable," the Queen agreed. "As they should be. Why create something that serves only one purpose when it could serve many?" "We spent hours in that lab," the Queen explained crystalline growth patterns while I sketched human engineering solutions on a borrowed datapad. Shivara asked endless questions about human fabrication techniques, why we used welding instead of bonding, why our armor came in pieces instead of integrated units. I answered honestly because lying would have been pointless and insulting. They could have extracted this information a dozen different ways. Instead, they were offering something rarer than cooperation. They were offering dialogue. A guard entered, clicking softly. The Queen responded in their language, mandibles moving in complex patterns. The guard left. "Dinner," the Queen said. "You must be hungry." I was 3 hours in detention, followed by hours of technical discussion, and I hadn't eaten since before the raid. "Yes, ma'am." "Don't call me ma'am. I'm not your officer." She led the way out of the lab, Shivara bouncing along beside her. "My name is Tharnash Yuzit. That feels inappropriate. More inappropriate than discussing military secrets with your captor." She glanced back, mandibles quirked in amusement. "We've moved beyond normal protocols, human. Adapt or be left behind." The dining space was smaller than I expected, more intimate. A table size for maybe 6 Catharans, which meant 4 humans could have sat comfortably. Dishes were already laid out, some recognizable, others completely alien. Tharnash gestured to a seat. "Sit." "The protein blocks are human compatible. We synthesized them from your ration bars." "You analyzed our rations?" "We analyze everything we capture. Know your enemy's logistics, and you know their limitations." She settled across from me, her armor reflecting the room's soft light. "Eat. We have much to discuss." Shvara climbed into a seat beside her mother, small hands reaching for something that looked like crystallized fruit. She watched me with undisguised fascination as I tried the protein block. It tasted like recycled cardboard, exactly like human rations. They'd gotten it perfect. "Your Outpost 7 defense," Tharnash began, loading her plate with something that squirmed slightly. "Walk me through your thinking. Why seal the eastern corridors first?" I swallowed. "Longest sightlines. Your troops would have used them for rapid advancement. Sealing them forced close-quarters fighting in areas where my people had defensive advantage. But you lost that advantage when we breached the northern wall. Tactical sacrifice. I needed you to commit forces to the north while we evacuated civilians through the southern maintenance tunnels." Shivara leaned forward, the false heat signatures in the command center. That was brilliant. "We wasted 6 hours trying to extract non-existent intelligence. Old mining trick. Route power through empty spaces, create thermal blooms, make it look occupied." I took another bite of the protein block. My father used it to fool safety inspectors who wanted to condemn profitable shafts. "Your father sounds resourceful." He was. "Died when your fleet hit the mining colonies in the Tau system." Silence fell across the table. Shivara stopped eating, her eyes darting between me and her mother. The Queen set down her utensil carefully. "I led that assault," she said quietly. The colonies were producing weapons-grade materials, strategic targets. The weapons came later, after you invaded. Perhaps. She didn't look away, didn't make excuses. War makes murderers of us all. The question is, what we do after. After we realize the cost. After we understand what we've destroyed. She gestured at the room, the ship, the war beyond. I've fought for 30 years, human. I've seen worlds burn. I've ordered strikes that killed millions. And I've watched my people die in battles that meant nothing a month later. Doubling boys, then why keep fighting? Because stopping requires both sides to want peace. And peace looks like surrender to those who've lost too much. Her mandibles moved in what might have been a sigh. Your father died in a war neither of us wanted. My mate died defending a colony that we abandoned 3 weeks later. These losses define us until we let them go. Tharnesh covered her daughter's hand with her own, the gesture universal despite the alien physiology. I don't know how to let it go, I said. Neither do I, but I know how to build something better. She looked at me directly. That's why you're here. Not to betray your people, not to win the war, to help me build a bridge that might outlast us both. A bridge made of what? Knowledge. Mutual respect for craft and capability. She gestured at her armor. You see this as beautiful because you understand the work behind it. I see your maze defense as beautiful for the same reason. That recognition transcends species. The people giving orders don't care about recognition, but their children might. Tharnesh looked at Shvara. She studies your tactics not to kill humans better, but to understand how you think, what you value, why you fight so hard with so little. Shvara nodded eagerly. Humans are amazing. You build things that shouldn't work but do. You adapt faster than anyone. Mother says you're dangerous because you never accept limitations. We accept plenty of limitations. We just don't advertise them. See? Tharnesh's mandibles spread. Honesty. Humans lie to enemies but tell the truth to those they respect. You respect me enough to be honest. That earns some honesty. I offered you a choice and you chose to engage rather than resist. That's different. She stood, moving to a wall panel that displayed star charts. Let me show you something. The display shifted, showing territory maps. Kataran space in purple, human space in green, contested zones in red. The red areas were growing. This is the war, Tharnesh said. Expanding, consuming, destroying. Every week we gain systems and lose them. Every month the casualty counts rise. Neither side can win decisively, so we grind each other down. Depressing picture. It's reality. But here's what most don't see. She zoomed in on a contested system, highlighting something. This is Research Station Epsilon, jointly operated by 3 human corporations and 2 Katharan industrial clans. It survived 4 years of war because both sides find it more valuable intact. Black market operation? Officially? Abandoned. Unofficially? Producing medical technology neither side can replicate alone. Humans have biological engineering we lack. We have crystalline synthesis you haven't mastered. Together that station has saved more lives than either military wants to admit. And command allows this? The materials flow through black channels, marked as salvage or confiscated supplies. Everyone involved maintains plausible deniability. She looked at me. But it exists. Cooperation exists. Even in war. Shvara pulled up another display showing similar examples. Manufacturing partnerships, information exchanges, quiet agreements to avoid civilian centers if the other side did the same. The war had cracks, places where practicality overruled ideology. You want me to be part of this? I said. Part of the cracks. I want you to help widen them. You have skills both sides need. Engineering knowledge, tactical creativity, the ability to make something from nothing. Share that knowledge and you save lives. Human lives. Karan lives. Perhaps enough lives to matter. And if I refuse? Then you go back to a cell until the war ends or we decide you're more dangerous alive than dead. No torture, no coercion. I don't believe in breaking people. But you'll spend however long you have left wondering what you could have built instead. The protein block sat heavy in my stomach. This wasn't a simple choice between collaboration and resistance. It was a choice between active participation in something potentially meaningful and passive waiting for death or rescue that might never come. What would you need from me? Specifically, technical consultation, human engineering perspectives on Katharan projects. Ideas for improving efficiency, reducing casualties, finding alternatives to direct combat. She sat back down. Nothing that directly aids military operations. Everything that might reduce the war's momentum. You want me to help you fight better? I want you to help us need to fight less. Tharnesh leaned forward. Every improvement in shielding means fewer deaths. Every advance in medical technology means more survivors. Every efficiency in production means less strain on civilian populations. These things reduce war's pressure. Shvara watched me with those curious eyes. Will you teach me human mathematics? Mother says you use different computational methods. I want to understand them. The request was so earnest, so young, that I almost laughed. Here I was deciding whether to potentially betray my species, and this kid wanted math lessons. Yeah, I heard myself say. Yeah, I can teach you math. Tharnesh's mandibles spread in what I was learning to read as satisfaction. Good. We'll start tomorrow. Tonight, you should rest. You've had an exhausting day. A guard appeared to escort me. Not the same ones from detention. These moved with professional courtesy, keeping respectful distance. They led me to a small cabin with a bed sized for humans, a water dispenser, and a viewport showing the stars. I sat on the bed and stared out at space. Somewhere out there, human fleets were fighting Kataran warships. People were dying for systems and pride, and because the war had momentum, nothing could stop, except maybe small things. Cracks in the foundation, moments of cooperation that proved enemies could build together. I thought about my father, dead in the Tau system. What would he say about working with the people who killed him? But I also thought about those 400 civilians I'd kept alive. Would he value their survival over revenge? The armor floated in my mind. 600 years of accumulated knowledge passed down through generations. We didn't build like that. We built for now, for quick solutions, for whatever got us through the current crisis. Maybe that was our problem. I lay back on the bed, exhausted but unable to sleep. Tomorrow I'd teach alien mathematics to a queen's daughter. Tomorrow I'd start working with the enemy. Tomorrow I'd try to build something that might outlast the war. Tonight I just stared at the stars and wondered if I'd made the right choice or the biggest mistake of my life. Probably both. Probably always both. 3 months later, I stood in a fabrication bay watching something impossible take shape. The hybrid armor grew inside a containment field, metal bonding bacteria working alongside human nanoforges, purple light from the Catharan process mixed with the blue glow of human plasma welding. It shouldn't work. Every engineer from both species said it couldn't work. It was working beautifully. Shvara monitored readouts while I adjusted field calibrations. She'd grown in 3 months, both physically and intellectually. Her questions had evolved from simple curiosity to genuine engineering insight. Last week, she'd solved a heat distribution problem that had stumped me for days. Temperature stable, she reported. Growth rate optimal. Integration depth exceeds projections by 12%. Good call. Pride. She felt pride in our work. So did I, which should have felt stranger than it did. Tharnesh entered the bay, her armor somehow darker than before. She'd added something to it recently, a new layer of decoration along the shoulder guards. I'd watched her work on it during late-night sessions when neither of us could sleep. Status? She asked, ahead of schedule. The integration is holding better than projected. We might finish the prototype 2 weeks early. Good. The Council wants a demonstration. I tensed. The Council. Kataran leadership, the ones who made decisions about the war. What kind of demonstration, the kind that proves human Kataran cooperation, produces superior results. Don't worry, they're not expecting you to betray military secrets. Just to show that our combined knowledge exceeds what either species achieves alone. Father, can I present the mathematical efficiency models? I worked really hard on them. Father. Darnesh noticed my reaction. Her mandibles quirked in amusement. She's been calling you that for a month. You haven't noticed? I thought she was using a translator error. In our culture, father is a title of respect and education. You teach her, guide her learning, share knowledge. That makes you a father in the ways that matter to her. Tarnish moved closer, studying the growing armor. Does it bother you? I don't know. Maybe. Yes. No. I ran a hand through my hair. I didn't expect to be anyone's father, especially not an alien queen's daughter. Life rarely meets expectations. The question is whether you embrace the role or reject it. Shvara watched us with anxious eyes. She understood we were talking about her. I looked at this young Kataran who'd spent 3 months asking me endless questions, who'd brought me puzzle boxes to solve when she noticed I was sad, who taught me to read basic Kataran script so I could understand technical documents. I'm honored, I said quietly. If you want to call me father, I'm honored. She practically vibrated with happiness, mandibles spreading so wide I worried they'd snap. Does this mean I can show you my collection of human engineering failures? Mother says I shouldn't bother you with recreational interests, but I've cataloged 17 different ways human bridge designs have collapsed and the mathematical reasons why, and it's fascinating. Tharnesh made a sound that might have been a laugh. See what you've done? Now she'll never stop talking. I look forward to it, I said, and meant it. The weeks before the council demonstration passed in a blur of work and unexpected normalcy. I taught Shvara mathematics and engineering principles. She taught me Kataran history and cultural context. Tharnesh oversaw everything, offering insights from 30 years of military engineering experience. We became something like a family. Strange, impossible, built from war and circumstance, but real. The prototype armor finished 2 weeks early, just as projected. It exceeded every specification we'd set. Lighter than pure Katharan armor, stronger than human composite plating, with flexibility and damage resistance that surpassed both parent technologies. It's perfect, Shivara whispered, running her hands over the surface. The armor responded to her touch, shifting colors slightly. Bioresponsive coating, a feature we'd added on a whim that turned out to be revolutionary. It's a start, I corrected. We'll find flaws. We'll improve. That's how engineering works. But for now, it's perfect. I couldn't argue with that. The demonstration took place in a massive council chamber, circular like everything Katharan. Hundreds of observers filled tiered seating. Tharnesh stood at the center, her armor gleaming under focused light. I stood beside her, feeling very small and very human. Shvara presented our findings. Her voice carried through the chamber, confident and clear. She explained the mathematical models, the integration techniques, the breakthrough moments. She showed videos of failed attempts and successful solutions. She made it clear this was collaboration, not human instruction or Katharan modification. Partnership, equal and necessary. Council asked questions, pointed, skeptical questions designed to find weakness. I answered the technical ones. Tharnesh handled the political ones. Together, we painted a picture of possibility. When we finished, silence filled the chamber. I couldn't read Katharan expressions well enough to know if that was good or bad. Then one of the council members stood. Ancient even by Katharan standards, armor so old it looked like fossilized bone. You claim this represents superior methodology. Prove it. What proof would satisfy the council? Combat test. Your hybrid armor against traditional Katharan battleplate. Full contact simulation. They wanted to see it damaged, wanted to see if our creation could survive real violence. I looked at Shvara. She'd poured her heart into this project. Watching it get torn apart would hurt. But Tharnesh just nodded. Acceptable. I'll wear the hybrid armor myself. Mother, no. Shvara's voice cracked. It's not tested for full combat. We don't know the failure points. Then we'll discover them. That's what tests are for. Tharnesh touched her daughter's shoulder gently. Trust our work. Trust what we built together. The simulation took place in a training arena. Tharnesh wore our hybrid armor. Her opponent wore traditional battleplate that had survived countless engagements. Both warriors carried training weapons that could still break bones and crack armor. I watched from the observation deck with Shivara pressed against my side. Her hands gripped the railing so hard her claws dug into the metal. It'll hold, I said. We built it right. You don't know that. I know we followed every protocol. I know the math works. I know your mother is the best warrior in this fleet. It'll hold. The combat began with startling violence. The opponent moved with practiced efficiency, striking for gaps and weak points. Tharnesh defended and countered, her movements fluid despite the new armor. Each impact rang through the arena. The hybrid armor held. It did more than hold. It adapted. The bioresponsive coating shifted to reinforce impact points. The integrated structure distributed force better than traditional plating. Where regular armor would have cracked, our creation flexed and recovered. 15 minutes of brutal combat. Neither warrior gained clear advantage. They were evenly matched, which meant our armor performed identically to 600-year-old technology while being lighter, more flexible, and potentially more adaptable. Tharnesh won by a narrow margin, disarming her opponent with a move that required the hybrid armor's enhanced shoulder mobility. The arena erupted in chittering clicks. Approval. I felt Shvara relax against me. We did it. Your math made this possible. Your engineering made it real. She looked up at me with those 4 black eyes. We did it together, Father. The Council's decision took 3 days. 3 days of waiting while Tharnesh explained that Katharan bureaucracy moved at its own pace. 3 days of working in the fabrication bay, teaching Shvara new techniques, trying not to think about what failure might mean. On the 3rd day, Tharnesh found us testing stress tolerances on a new alloy sample. Her expression was unreadable. The Council has decided they're authorizing a full research initiative. Join human Katharan engineering development, with applications for both military and civilian use. Funding for 5 years minimum, expandable based on results. I set down the testing equipment carefully. They're approving cooperation, official cooperation. But yes, the armor demonstration convinced them that combined knowledge produces strategic advantages.
They want more. Ship designs.
Weapon systems. Medical technology. Everything we can create together. This is huge. This is the beginning. Tharnesh moved closer. There's more. They want to establish an exchange program. Katharan engineers embedded with human research teams, human engineers working in our facilities. Cultural exchange through scientific cooperation.
Shvara bounced excitedly. Can I participate?
Please say I can participate. I want to meet human engineers and see how they think and learn their methods. You're too young, Tharnesh said, but her tone suggested she was already reconsidering. I'm old enough to help build revolutionary armor. I'm old enough to present to the Council. I'm old enough to have a human father. Shvara crossed her arms. I'm old enough to learn. She looked amused and proud in equal measure. Your daughter makes compelling arguments. She learned from you. You've made her more stubborn than any young Katharan should be. Good. Stubbornness keeps you alive. The research initiative launched a month later. They assigned me to a team developing hybrid ship designs, combining human speed and maneuverability with Katharan durability and power systems. Shvara joined as a junior researcher despite her age. Tharnesh oversaw multiple projects while maintaining her military duties. We worked 80-hour weeks. We argued over design philosophies and material choices. We failed more often than we succeeded. But slowly, incrementally, we built things that mattered. A new medical scanner that combined human biological sensors with Katharan crystalline imaging. 15% more accurate than either species achieved alone. Ship armor that could regenerate from damage using biological mechanical hybrid systems. Reduced combat losses by 8% in field trials. Communication protocols that let human and Katharan computers interface directly. Improve coordination in the joint research facilities by 30%. Small victories. Cracks in the war's foundation. Each breakthrough proved cooperation worked. Each success made the next project easier to justify. 6 months into the initiative, Tharnesh called me to her private quarters. I'd never been there before. The space was surprisingly sparse, just her armor on a display stand, a few personal items, and a viewport showing the stars. We need to talk, she said. Sit. I sat. Her tone suggested this was serious. The human military has made inquiries about you. They want to know if you're alive, if you're cooperating willingly, if you've been compromised. She paced slowly. I'd been avoiding direct answers. That's no longer possible. Verification that you haven't been coerced. Eventually, they'll want you back. My chest tightened. Going back meant court-martials, interrogations, accusations of treason. It also meant seeing my own people again, being among humans, potentially continuing the fight. What did you tell them? I wanted to talk to you first. This is your choice, not mine. Is it? You could just keep me here. Claim I'm too valuable to return. I could. But that would make you a prisoner again. Just a comfortable one. That's not what I want. She stopped pacing, facing me directly. You've given us 6 months of brilliant work. You've taught my daughter things I never could. You've helped build something genuinely new. If you want to go home, I'll facilitate it. No conditions, no strings. And if I want to stay, keep teaching Shvara. Help me prove that cooperation can outlast the war. Her mandibles quirked, but staying has consequences. You'll be branded a traitor by some. Your name will be used in propaganda. You might never be able to return to human space without facing prosecution. I thought about Outpost 7, about holding those blast doors while the civilians escaped, about making impossible choices because they were the only choices that mattered. This wasn't different. Just another impossible situation requiring a decision. I'm staying. The work matters more than my reputation. Tharnesh nodded slowly. I hoped you'd say that. But I need you to understand what you're choosing. This isn't temporary. This is permanent. You're choosing to live among Tharans, to potentially never see another human face except in conflict. That's a hard life. So was defending Outpost 7. I'm used to hard string. Hard and lonely are different things. Then I'll adapt. That's what humans do. We adapt. She moved to the viewport, looking out at the stars. There's something else, something I've been considering. It's unconventional, possibly controversial, but it solves several problems at once.
What kind of problems?
Legitimacy problems, the kind that make people question your presence here. She turned back to me. Kataran culture has a tradition called bond adoption. When someone outside the bloodline contributes significantly to a family's legacy, they can be formally adopted, given family rights and protections. You want to adopt me? I want to make your position here official and unquestionable. Bond-adopted members have legal standing. They can't be returned to enemies against their will. They're protected by family honor. Her eyes met mine. And Shvara already considers you father. This would formalize what already exists. Being formally adopted into an alien royal family. Becoming legally connected to a queen who led attacks against human colonies. Binding myself permanently to the other side of the war. It was insane. Unprecedented. Probably political suicide. Yes, I said. Let's do it. The bond adoption ceremony was smaller than I expected. Just Tharnesh, Shavara, a few council witnesses, and a cultural officiant who looked old enough to have witnessed the invention of space travel. They spoke in formal Catharan that my translator struggled to parse, talking about legacy and honor and contribution to the bloodline. Then Tharnesh removed one of her armor plates, a small piece from her forearm carved with intricate patterns. She pressed it against my chest. It was warm, almost alive. This armor has protected my family for 600 years. Now it protects you. You are blood of my blood, legacy of my legacy, bound by honor and choice. Do you accept? The words came easily. I accept. The witnesses clicked approval. The officiant made some final proclamation. And just like that, I was family. Tharnesh gave me the armor plate afterward. I held it carefully, feeling the weight of 6 centuries. I can't wear this. I'm not Catherine. But someday, when we've perfected the hybrid integration, this plate will be the first piece of new armor built on our combined knowledge, human and Catharan. Past and future, she touched my shoulder. You've earned it. Shvara hugged me, which was a new experience. Catharan hugs involved a lot of limbs and mandibles and being careful not to impale yourself on chitin edges. I hugged her back, this alien child who had adopted me as enthusiastically as I'd been adopted by her mother. We were family now. Strange, impossible, built from war and curiosity and the simple act of recognizing value in unexpected places. The war continued. People still died in battles over systems and pride. But in our research facility, we built things that saved lives. Every breakthrough mattered. Every collaboration proved cooperation was possible. I thought about my father sometimes, wondered what he'd think. But I also thought about those civilians from Outpost 7, about creating value that outlasted conflict, about building something that might eventually matter more than the fighting. The armor plate sat on my desk in the fabrication bay. Shvara used it as inspiration, measuring its curves and studying its patterns. Tharnesh checked our progress between military briefings, offering suggestions born from centuries of accumulated knowledge. And I worked. Built. Taught. Adapted. Because that's what humans did. We found ways to survive in impossible situations. We made families from strangers. We built bridges across chasms that should have been permanent. The war would end eventually. One way or another. But what we were building here, this strange collaboration between species that should have been eternal enemies, this might outlast the conflict. This might become the future. One hybrid armor plate at a time. One mathematical insight. One shared meal. One moment of recognition that the person across from you, no matter how alien, values the same things you do. Excellence. Understanding. I looked at the armor plate and saw 600 years of accumulated knowledge. But I also saw the future we were building. 700 years from now, maybe some engineer would hold a piece of what we created and marvel at how humans and Catharans learned to work together, how enemies became collaborators, how war gave birth to cooperation, how a prisoner and a queen and a curious young engineer built something beautiful from the wreckage. It was a good legacy. Worth fighting for. Worth staying for. Worth everything.